Can we say? Okay,
Very serious.
Say, everyone loves me.
Everyone loves you.
Stop.
Yeah, I'll hang it up, but,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Said, yeah, what about? I think that's the way to do it. Recommendation.
Don't zoom in, I like zooming
Minimum
in.
lots, you know, because some of our, the ag is rural, a lot of our rural is.
Jay, back up a second. Okay.
So whenever you get to that point, you'll.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump, but I see what you're Oh, yeah.
I don't care.
Or do we? Fine, we don't have greenhouse.
Breaks.
You break anything, right? Yep.
R1 and R2 although ag is allowed, most people.
I see my neighbors.
So,
Don't care. What's Rick all about?
No, they're huge. Yeah, they are. Why don't you see it right now? And then almost all.
Hey, my neighbor ran the fence right across the creek.
Yeah.
Skid loader.
So these people like on the truck with all the
Besides life.
Yeah.
Oh, I have
Cultivation.
one right
And you have
across
the
the creek.
cultivation.
Somebody at Tanner.
Right.
I said, get all of them in the morning and I can call soil and water, or you guys can call the board of engineers. Major waterway, you can't do that.
Yeah, but it's not city.
Wow. So. I. Amazing.
Isn't it?
The bottle working.
Okay.
So I'll do some checking.
So you. He's got to go off.
Yes.
Yep.
That one separately, because we do a public hearing for that.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Amy? Call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for our January 6th, 2025 Credit River City Council meeting. We're going to begin, since this is the first meeting of the year, with our clerk swearing in the council members. Amy, if you want to use the podium, maybe. And we're just all one group.
One group.
One
or we
group?
do Fine.
We'll do one group.
Okay.
One group?
One group.
It's not.
not us.
Yeah, the
Right.
three elected council members and mayor, raise your right hand. I
Chris Costick,
solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota
and of the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully
and faithfully,
for and on behalf of the citizens of the
Oh.
city of Credit River,
for and on behalf of the citizens of the city of Credit River,
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
of
of Credit River,
mayor or council.
of mayor,
Sorry. Of the city of Credit River
of the city of Credit River,
in the county of Scott
in the county of Scott,
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you, Amy.
A glass of wine. Or something.
Yep. All right. Next up, approve or amend the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda anybody would like to make tonight? I will make one. I would like to pull 3.3 fee ordinance from consent agenda and move that to 7.7 under general business. If I don't hear any more, I would take a motion to approve the agenda with the one change.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, Abe. So I've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda with one change. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. I don't see a deputy here, so we won't have a sheriff's report, and we'll move to consent agenda. Those items on the council agenda which are considered routine or non-controversial are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight, on consent agenda, we've got three items. 3.1, approve the minutes of the December 16th, 2024 city council meeting. 3.2, approve payment of claims and transfer requests as presented. And 3.3, approve resolution 2025-02, updating the wages for city positions. Is there any items from the consent agenda anybody would like to remove, consider separately? I will take a motion to approve.
So.
Thank you, Jay.
Second.
Thank you, Abe. Motion and a second to approve consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum will be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. Tonight, we have one person that signed up for open forum. That would be former council member Brent Lawrence. Good evening, Brent.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the city council. I'll adjust the microphone here a little bit. Brent Lawrence, City of Prior Lake, former town board supervisor, board chair, and city council person. First of all, Chris Leroy, congratulations on your reelection. I think that's an indication of the high level of trust that the residents have on your abilities to govern. And I'd also like to congratulate Bill on your first elected term. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second, I just want to add one question. When I resigned from the council and my family and I moved out of Credit River in July of 2023, my photo is still on the website. I'm assuming tonight that maybe some of those, I'm starting to get mistaken for Mr. Markert. And the picture that's on there makes me look very thin and very tall. Now, my wife likes that. But if that could be removed, that would probably be good. And I want to have people calling me and looking for Bill. So
Yeah.
thank you. No, I just thought I would mention that. But anyway, congratulations to you all. It's great to be back here for a minute or two. And I know it's supposed to be less than 5 minutes. So thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Brent.
Okay.
Appreciate
Brent.
it. Good to see you.
Yep.
Amy, if you'll, once we get these pictures, if you update the photo, I think we have headshots for everybody now. I got one of Bill here tonight, so. Anybody else for open forum tonight? Seeing none, we'll close open forum and we'll move into general business. General business number one, consider resolution 2025-01, making official designation and council appointments. Administrator Johnson, do you have any comment on this one?
Where the city clerk had prepared the list and we communicated with the Old National Bank, the newspaper, and the background as well. So I'm certainly pass it to Amy.
Okay, Amy? Anything?
I'd like to know if you would all like to discuss whether or not you wanted to make changes to which committees you're on. Otherwise, we recommend leaving the bank the same and the newspaper the same, with the addition of the Star Tribune as a backup, just in case we need it. seeing if the Lakeville Sun this week is the only one that's going.
Okay. Sounds good. Council members, any thoughts or discussion on this topic?
Can we go through them, and if we have other interest in some of these, we talk about them?
Yeah,
Each one?
Before we go there, can I talk about newspaper? So what statute do we have? I mean,
Yeah.
now that I don't want Credit River in the Star Tribune, I think that's a waste of print. I think no one's gonna read it, and everyone that's not in Credit River is now gonna start to see things that make no sense to them at all. So is there a statute that requires us to do that, or is there?
Attorney
Mayor,
Michael.
Councilmember Zanto, it is a statutory requirement and you have your choice of some newspapers. They have to meet a certain distribution requirement, and a lot of cities are finding that they're going to the Star Tribune, the Pioneer Press, because local papers are folding. And the statute hasn't caught up with the obsolete nature of this requirement.
So if you remember, this is one of Scale's legislative priorities, is to try to get change in this area to allow posting on our website. I think Amy has already stood that up on our website, so that we're, already kind of, taking the lead and saying, hey, it's viable by posting public notices on our website. And, we can track to see what kind of traction we get pretty quickly that way.
Right.
We've always in the past, when Prior Lake American was around, that did about 50% of, distribution in Credit River. The Lakeville paper does about 50% distribution in there. So they both qualified as an official publication. Now with the Prior Lake paper gone, I don't know that we don't necessarily need to have two. But I think this is, set as an alternate in case something were to happen and that we would need to make a change, partway through the year.
So
Doesn't mean that we would post in both. We would publish in the Lakeville paper.
So what is statute then for if it's only getting 50% of Credit River in the Lakeville Sun? Does that qualify then?
Peter, do you know that statute off the top of your head, what the qualifying newspaper is? Because I know there's a number to it.
There is a number to it. I'm not prepared off the top of my head, but I will look it up while we're talking.
Yeah. So for perspective, by the way, City of Prior Lake had to move to the Star Tribune for their official posting or their official publications. If you had to guess, out of the 30,000 people who live in Prior Lake, how many physical Star Tribunes get delivered in the city?
Probably about 12.
More than 12, but not much more than 12 comparatively. It's like 200. There's I think 200 Star Tribune has 200 physical subscriptions in the city of Prior Lake. And they have no other choice but to use that for their publication.
Mr. Mayor, one other note. It's just also from a timeliness standpoint, sometimes things will arise where the city needs to get a publication out. And even if the Prior Lake paper is still viable in a sense, they publish once a week. And short of that, at least you have another identifiable option. In terms of cost, you want to use the Prior Lake paper 100% of
The Lakeville
time.
paper.
Or Lakeville, sorry.
Yeah.
But in the event you need to, you have the option.
If I could ask, what does the county use?
They used to use Bell Plain paper, but that folded, so I don't know what they use.
Probably, I think they use Star Tribune.
Probably.
Yeah, Star Tribune. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Zanto, the statute requires that the paper have circulation to at least 75% of the population.
So we're at,
Star Tribune, so too.
well, yeah. So, and that's the problem. So that's
Good
the,
points.
and quite frankly, that's the problem that most
Oh,
of these
even
cities
with
are
the
facing,
land,
is that you don't have the local paper, right? It's not meeting, Elko Newmarket hasn't met the statute in decades. Because there just isn't a choice for them. But at least we have one that gets relatively close to it. We can say we tried.
Well, I mean, it's just a question, but can a posting board
That's
act
also,
in lieu of the paper?
Councilmember Soderback, no, I cannot.
yeah. It's somewhere, it's probably around, both of them are required.
Yeah, it used to be.
Yeah. So are we good with the Lakeville paper? You guys all okay with that one?
Requirements either.
It doesn't, but
Um,
I think we'll go above and beyond and also post them on our website, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which will, get more
And
visitors
actually,
anyways,
Our email has.
We
has a
can-
wider circulation than that, so.
100%. Old National Bank is a depository. I don't know that there's any reason to change there.
Nope.
Okay. Acting mayor. So I was thinking about this one and Bill took this one as he was appointed to Brent's position and that was there. I'm kind of thinking that this might be nice to rotate around through the other council members and I'd recommend we start with the, council member that has the most experience, which is Leroy for this next year.
Okay.
Well, you've been chair
Yeah.
before, you've
Oh,
done
yeah,
it.
no, I know, that's fine, yeah. Give her a spin for a year.
I'd be welcome to do it again. Mayor wants to go a different route, that's fine.
I think I prefer to leave it the way it is.
You got your heart set in it, Leroy? You wanna do it?
No, I'll just, we used to rotate stuff, but,
Did we?
Mhm.
yeah, that's.
Okay.
fine. No,
Are we gonna rotate all these committees then, probably then? We're rotating.
Well, some of these committees, I think probably aren't needed anymore.
Right, we'll go through the list.
Yeah.
Those.
So as, for instance, city attorney and city engineer RFP committees aren't needed anymore.
Right.
So those we can cross off the list. We probably don't need,
Well, can we hold on, the city engineer and RFP committee, we have a interim engineering firm right now. It's my understanding we're gonna be hiring a,
no, we hired Shane's firm.
the engineer.
oh, engineering, I'm
Plan-
sorry, that was planning. My apologies, my
Yeah.
apologies. We did,
Planning, we did call specifically for an RFP this year.
yeah. So maybe we change engineering to planning?
Okay. We probably don't need liaisons to Savage, Prior Lake, Scott County, Spring Lake, any of the townships or surrounding cities, as most of that stuff gets handled at a staff level anyways.
Is there a reason why we had those on before?
In the past, as a township bill, we didn't have staff to deal
Yeah.
with these, so we generally would meet with them. Maybe once a year.
Okay,
And it would be
So-
only when there was stuff of action that needed to happen.
All right.
Most of the time now it would just be staff would work with their staff and come back with a recommendation to council.
all right. So last year we didn't have any meetings with Savage, Prior Lake, Scott County, Spring Lake, or Lakeville.
So we met with Savage one time last year. Trying to remember, I think it was early in the year, but we really don't. So actually what prompted my thought process in this is that actually Savage has eliminated their liaison appointment to Credit River as well. So, because of a similar conversation.
Okay. And I assume if something comes up, we'll talk about it as a council.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
And did you say Lakeville also then?
Yeah, that one, I don't know that we've ever had a meeting with Lakeville.
Okay.
We do. The things in common we do is Judicial Road. But other than that, that's
Right.
pretty much it.
Right. So all those go away. We skipped scale. Can we go back to scale real quick?
Certainly.
So I'd like to be a representative on scale. This year.
Kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, scale general session is open to anybody, Bill.
But I thought we're rotating.
Yeah,
So
we can still do that. And you can still, if you want to take my spot on the general session,
Okay.
Government Center one, I don't think there's any reason to change. Abe and Jay have been leading that charge. I don't think we want to get in the middle and make that change at this point.
You don't want that one?
Was that on the resolution, by the way? I didn't see the non-compensatable citizen advisory committees on the resolution. Was it on there? We just need to, do we need to add those onto the resolution?
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Market, they are independently authorized. It's not required by this annual
Okay.
resolution.
All right, thank you.
I think that's it. Unless there's anything else anybody wants to change.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to change from being the sheriff, being on the sheriff department liaison to fire department liaison. That's between you and Chris, I guess.
Well, all right. After reading your proposal last week,
It wasn't a proposal, it was just some information.
I understand. I don't know how to say this, but I think you should probably study a lot more.
Okay. And, well, that's not on the agenda tonight,
Right.
but maybe they'll be on a future agenda.
Trying to think if we even need to have fire and sheriff as liaison appointments. Again, you know,
Just one meeting. Yeah.
maybe one meeting a year. It's a, you know, more of a, they present the budget, which is the budget at that point.
And if we want to meet with them, we just come to the council and ask, hey, we want to have a meeting.
We could request a meeting with them at any point, I guess, and then, you know, a contingent of the council could meet with them.
All right. So those are going away?
Yeah, I would say we could have those two go away. Anybody have anything else, or is somebody ready to make a motion to approve resolution 2025-01?
I don't think I'm clear as to what we've got here. Amy,
Amy,
are you clear?
you have to hold it till the green light comes on.
away with.
There you go.
Engineer one.
It looks like we're eliminating the liaisons for,
The cities and county and townships.
engineering committee is changing to planning
Yep,
liaison, okay. And then we also are not keeping
fire, sheriff,
fire and sheriff.
correct. And then we're changing out, Bill is gonna be the scale general membership representative instead of me. And Leroy's acting mayor.
Junior mayor.
You want that because you get a badge with that one, huh?
I still got a badge. Weed inspector badge.
All right,
How's that looking?
So the planning RFP is who? Leroy and Jay?
correct.
Um,
We just changed the name.
I'd love to be in there.
Planning.
Yeah.
Which one?
No.
So,
Planning
so
RFP.
hang on. So if we change the city engineer, change the one word, since we won't have an engineer RFP,
Okay.
but we'll have, because we have an interim planner.
Yeah.
We will
Yeah,
do
you
a,
go- go
we'll,
ahead.
you know, if we do a
Not
RFP for
Cool.
planning services, it would be that committee.
Yeah, Abe's gonna,
Take your spot?
sure.
Okay. All right. Any other comment, discussion? Anybody ready to take a motion?
So I do have one other comment. So acting mayor. I do prefer Bill, not anything against Leroy, but I think Bill brings a lot of things that we can have great discussions on.
Any further discussion on that?
No.
Okay, anybody ready to make a motion with what we had discussed?
I'll make a motion to accept the changes that we made to this resolution.
So your motion is Pat, approve resolution 2025-01 with the noted changes that
Correct.
recorded. Okay. Got the motion. Anybody want a second?
I'll second it.
A motion by Councilmember Market, second by Schomer. For the discussion, Jay.
Point of information. Sorry, what are we doing with the acting mayor?
It was
Motion?
changed
changed.
to Leroy.
It is changed.
Mhm.
Sounds to me like only Abe and I wanted to keep me as it. No one else spoke up, so.
Okay, so, all right, my question is yes.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
So my motion passes 4-1. General business 7.2, discussion and update cannabis moratorium and ordinance update. Attorney McKell.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. So a couple of things we need to cover tonight, and this is a little bit unusual, as are all things Office of Cannabis Management, a little unusual. I don't know if any of you are Harry Potter fans, but famously, the position of professor of defense against the dark arts is a post that can never be filled. And apparently the manager of OCM can never be filled. Just today, I learned that the acting administrator
Yeah,
is out
he just resigned.
effective the 17th, and the general counsel will be stepping into the void for however long. And so we don't have rules yet. We have draft rules. And sort of big picture, the idea was all the cities are entitled to put a moratorium in place through January 1 of this year. OCM is going to issue rules. They're going to be up and ready to issue licenses. We can adopt our ordinances knowing what the rules are before the moratorium is over. And that plan didn't come together. So moratorium is over. There are no rules yet. So no. That's you. So no.
Just. I thought this year was gonna be better.
Here they gave me, guy. That's, I think it's the operator. Sorry, Peter.
Sure. So no rules have been issued yet, so no licenses can be granted yet. But it's coming. And so we need to get sort of our basic ordinances on the books. And the plan that our office has been promulgating with all of our cities is understand that we're going to be coming back. And there may be more layers over maybe 2 or 3 iterations before they figured out what they're doing, so we can make sure we've got all of our bases covered. And so what we need to do next is take a draft ordinance to the Planning Commission, because one of the primary things that we have authority to do is zone. Not much else actually, but we have that. And so we're taking the somewhat unusual step of coming to you before we come to the Planning Commission, not so that we can sit here tonight as a Planning Commission and dive down the rabbit hole. I'm just not going to say it.
Yeah.
Of all of the possible things to consider, but to get like the 30,000 foot point of view of the council of what direction you would like to see this heading as we talk it through. And at some point here, I'm going to toss the baton to Claire, but not just yet. There are a few legal things to keep in mind. Number one of the choices the council has is in terms of registrations for retail licenses, the city can do that, or it can consent to have the county do it. If you do it, you have control over the ability to impose a cap. Since there's only 5,600 odd folks here in the city, was a poor way of rounding, but roughly 5,600 folks.
Not all that. I mean, a little bit, but
Excuse me. When we get that RFP thing for city attorney.
the attorney, we might need to go back.
We could limit it to one retail license in the city. And then registration would include annual registration, renewals, annual inspections. You collect fees for that. However, fees is not, as you know, a revenue generating thing. That's only got to be about recovering costs. On the other hand, you can consent to the county to do it, recognizing what resources you have here in the city and the likelihood that there's any place in the city that retail could happen anyway. But that's a decision that you'll need to make. Is it something you want to govern, or do you want to let the county do it to the extent it's possible that there could be retail anywhere in the city?
And then Peter, the county would bill us for any type of administrative fees to do
No,
our
the
work?
county would bill the applicants.
Okay, so
There's-
we wouldn't get
This isn't a
charged.
service like police or
Yeah.
fire.
Okay.
On that note also, I welcome the questions, and if it gets over my head, I want you to understand our firm has appointed a lawyer to understand all of this stuff. And I've been working closely with him, and I was hoping he could actually be here tonight, but he's doing this exact thing somewhere else tonight. But I can get more answers. If I don't know the answers off the top of my head tonight, I will get them for you. Another big picture thing that the city can consider is buffer zones where you prohibit cannabis businesses within 500 feet or 1,000 feet of things like daycares, playgrounds, things like that. The draft ordinance that you have in your packet is unlike most draft ordinances you'd see in a packet. This is not intended to be anything but a discussion item. And to guide the discussion about the sorts of questions Planning Commission will need to wrestle with when staff brings something to them and then comes back to you with a more fully
Yeah.
fully baked. I'm on a roll.
You are.
I'm so
Yeah.
You're doing some sampling?
Yeah, exactly.
wow, this is so. The draft ordinance we have in it, you'll see, would suggest that you would be having the buffers. We kind of anticipated that's something that most communities would want. But you know, these are things that are your call.
But there are statutory maximums.
Maximums.
We can't make our own.
You can't make your own.
Okay.
You could go lower if you want. if
What
you
is-
wish. It's
1,000 feet.
1,500.
A school of 500 feet from a daycare. Okay.
And then we're going to transition to questions that are really going to relate more to zoning, and I don't want to step too much on Claire's toes here, but just a couple of things. As you saw from the chart in the draft ordinance, there are many kinds of cannabis businesses that could qualify for licenses. Looking at our community, which is predominantly residential with some rural, and by rural in this context, I mean some ag. Most likely, the thing that you are going to want to have on your radar is what are we going to do about cannabis cultivation? Retail doesn't seem like a likely thing. Manufacturing, we would kind of automatically put that in industrial, and so there's not a whole lot of places that can go either. Cultivation is something to keep our minds on, and there's a few points about that. Number one, our nuisance ordinance doesn't address odors. Up until now, there haven't been any industries in the city that you'd be worried about regulating odors from. This one does. And so side along with whatever we're doing with zoning, I would intend to bring back to you an update to your nuisance ordinance to have some odor nuisance rules. Second, currently the zoning code allows ag everywhere in the city. That seems to be an artifact from another day, I mean, including R1, R2, everywhere in the city. Because cannabis cultivation looks an awful lot like ag, it'd be hard to justify treating it differently than other ag uses. And so it'd probably be a good idea for us to take to the planning commission as part of this, reducing ag to the places where we actually would want it, like RR. And where it exists elsewhere, as I'm sure most of the council knows, and anyone watching would like to know, they'd be grandfathered in. It doesn't mean that you can't do it anymore. You just, so it's called a legal non-conforming use, but a new one can't come in.
But could they change their crop?
Yeah, so this is an issue. These are
I have a
things
couple
we have to wrestle with.
Questions, if you don't mind taking.
Let's, yeah, hang on one second. Let's let him finish this statement.
Yeah.
Oh.
Jay.
Then one last sort of high level point that may not be obvious until you read the rules or the draft rules out there for outdoor cannabis cultivation. They have to have commercial grade security fencing at least 6 feet high around it, and they have to have lights on the entrances and exits. And so to the extent that ag fits very nicely against sort of our executive lots for homes, otherwise here that may not be as good of a fit. And so we might want to think about things that we'll present to the planning commission to deal with how well those two uses sit together. For example, your code already has in it for ag, you can't have an ag building unless you have at least 10 acres. And so if we had something like that, even if it's with or without a building for cannabis, because you have these features that we're going to need to buffer from inconsistent uses, we could talk about that together with some setbacks. And whatever we do with any of the cannabis licenses, we would be recommending that they're permitted in the code as conditional uses, so that the council, and we could talk about interim or conditional, but something so that the council can address how this is going to be allowed, but allowed in a way that is minimizing impacts on neighbors. The rules are about doing this safely and legally and not having really bad things happen from a new industry. They're not about zoning concerns about how well this lawful use fits next to this lawful use. And so we need to have some of those conversations. And I think that's as far as I wanted to take it before maybe passing it over to Claire for more conversation, or to Eric about what we're thinking goes where. I can say more.
Yeah, maybe
but-
pause for a second. I think Councilmember Sonnerbach has some
I do.
questions.
So, like you said before, this kind of falls into zoning. Is it possible then for us to have a separate classification of retail or ag or those things in it, like a subsection to that particular zoning? So, when you look at it, currently, no such subsection exists within Credit River. It would actually have to go before a commission, get brought in and zoned correctly for that. I mean, I think that's the first place, which allows for public comment with objections, et cetera, to at least have some control over that versus just granting that. I mean, we have kind of wide open slate where we don't really have very much industrial or retail zoning currently in Credit River, but to specify that as, its own separate thing, both in the ag section and both in the retail, so that it would then generate, like you say, either a conditional use. I think an interim permit, use permit would make much wiser to do it. My next question is, if we're going to establish distances between things, you have to look at Credit River as in a rural state. Most of those things that we're talking about don't exist here. What happens if we have a location that's has our place, and somebody wants to come in and put in a daycare, somebody wants to put in an established school, a school district wants to build a school in Credit River, any of those things, is that going to cause a problem with a new use coming in versus something that was granted to that? I mean, we need to have some.
So you're imagining that the cannabis business happens first And then
It probably
something
will,
happens
because a
next
lot of
to it.
those things that we're saying is that you can't be within 1,000 feet of this and 500 feet of that and everything else, but
So that
if you look
probably,
around Credit River, those things don't exist right now.
that probably precludes the next use from
Right.
coming next to that,
Right.
in that spot. huh?
So
I would imagine.
how do we treat that? Make sure that that can happen. The other thing, the other one is, we do have a right to farm ordinance here, and which pretty much covers most of the city. And, what are we looking at doing there? I think that's by eliminating uses or those things, we're kind of stepping away from being rural in that. So I think we need to be careful with that, because we're eliminating the rural character of the properties.
So I'll try and take the 3 points in
Yeah.
order and do my
And
best.
I have a couple more after that, but let's just,
Well, maybe we
Yeah.
also let Claire, because
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
some of them get
sure.
clarified by her comments and stuff. So maybe after we'll let Peter respond to your first three and move on.
You're absolutely right. We're starting with a clean slate. We don't have anything in our code on any of this. The way that our zoning code is set up, we have a table of uses that assigns uses by definition. Our draft ordinance and the final ordinance we bring forward certainly will have definitions of each of these things. And then in the table, we decide as a city, first the planning commission, then ultimately you decide where this belongs and under what terms, if we need to add performance standards for that particular thing. We would build all of that out. This is really the heavy lifting work of a planning commission to work with staff and give you what is much more developed than what you see right now tonight. But all of those things are very much like item 1 on the agenda. Second, in terms of what use comes first, you would not be able to kick out a lawful use because someone wanted to move in next door. I would think that would be a losing argument. And it's also something that's really beyond our control. The state dictates these buffer things. We don't get to say whether we want to have cannabis or not. We have cannabis. It's just going to be what our zoning controls are. We can say a buffer based on what exists. There are definitions for what daycare means. It doesn't just mean I'm watching my neighbor's kids. I'm going to call it a daycare. So those sorts of conflicts in society can happen anytime the law has these buffers in them. And this isn't the only location in the law where we have the buffers. The third point about the rural character, there may be more than one way to skin this cat. If you were to, instead of taking ag out of all of the places where we're now zoned and guided for more R1 type uses or R2, we could talk about other ways to get there with performance standards, like minimum lot sizes or something like that. If there's a legacy farm with 20 acres in the R1, and you want to leave them there, we could talk about it that way. However, again, we can preserve it through a legal non-conforming status, even if we clean up the code. But we are getting into some of the really detailed questions as we start to work through these changes. And I feel like I'm really starting to step on the planner's toes.
And from there, Claire, if you want to take over and
Sure.
add some additional color.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I think one thing, and maybe Pete did mention this, but for the cultivation businesses, unlike the retail, that could go to the county for permitting. Cultivation, even if the city kept their permitting for the retail, I think you can minimum to 1 with your population. You cannot limit the number of cultivation businesses. So I just wanted to clarify that. And that's where a lot of the staff discussion led that. The big conversation that we're gonna have at the public hearing and with the planning commission is this cultivation. Now, the state did provide pretty good definitions on the different types of cannabis cultivation businesses, the associated license that come with that. But I really think that due to the fact that ag is a big part of Credit River's nature, and there is still a lot of open land that could be sold and made into a giant cannabis facility, that we need to create, I think, a minimum lot size that these cultivation businesses can be on, indoor and outdoor, especially greenhouse type. All of the indoor ones are in these big greenhouse growing facilities that have big chimneys that are made for, they are supposedly to prevent the odor and the noise, but they have security, they have people coming, they're a lot more of an active ag use rather than a passive ag use, so. Determining where that's viable within your existing zoning districts, likely RR, maybe UER, are probably the two that we could limit, and we can limit by lot size, we can limit by IUP or CUP. I know the council has been thinking about incorporating more interim use permits into the use chart. And I think that's reasonable with cannabis, especially with the ongoing regulation changes as we look at those, however often you're renewing them, every 2 years, every 3 years, whatever the permit ends up being. We can see what the state has changed in some of the regulations, as well as what's working and what's not, and what's within the realm of what the state has limited the city to have power to focus on for your permits versus what you can prohibit, such as the amount of people coming on the traffic, the noise, the odor, water usage. That's another concern that's been brought up in some of my other communities. These indoor growing facilities use a significant amount, and where's the waste going when they're done using that? Where are the workers? Are there restrooms being built in these things? So a lot of things that regardless, I think have to be IUP or CUP that the planning commission and the council and staff are vetting before at the city level before anything is permitted to build, and the neighbors, of course, too, the compatibility of these. Now that a big thing that I think comes up sometimes is, oh, it's a conditional use or it's an interim use, so we can deny it. That's where, you know, we can get in some, I see it more as a permitted use that the city can build to work better within the area. I don't know if that's, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to deny unless, of course, it doesn't meet the minimum requirements of code, i.e. the acreage minimum. Maybe there's some other parameters that we want to discuss.
So I live a quarter mile from here, and there's a big farm field right there that they do corn or beans every year. Are you saying that they could start cultivating pot
Yes,
with a big 6-foot fence around
they could.
Lights,
And-
lights bill.
and
And
like,
Lights at the gates.
and there's nothing we can do about it
I mean, there are.
other than some of the things you mentioned, but it sounds to me like they have to be reasonable and
Yeah, and that's maybe too where your existing
City
districts, you don't have an agriculture district, you have a lot of the UER, the UERC that are
right.
for that council purposes, and R1, R2, R3, and RR.
Right.
So, yeah, there's not, and then if you were to like say, build a zoning district that's just ag, you'd have to rezone a bunch, it would be messy, I think, so. I don't,
One thing, after dealing with the county all these years on some of the permits they've issued that we didn't find out about till a year or two later, I think we should issue all our own permits and take care of all our own cannabis stuff.
Well, so the interesting, I was thinking through that, because, well, our number, if, again, the calculation is 1 per 12,500, the county's number is 13. Right, so if you let the county do it, those 13 could, I mean, it's unlikely to happen, but you know, then you lose control over the number, right? So one thing, if you guys haven't watched, did I send out the link to the county meeting when they did their ordinance just a couple weeks ago? I'll see if I can find it. I thought I sent it to you.
Send me the order.
Yeah, so watch the video of the presentation that their staff did for the county ordinance. Interesting, when Brad Davis talked about it, a couple of things were interesting that they went through and around the setbacks, right? So the county chose to do setbacks from the building rather than the edge of the lot. And Brad Davis displayed a map of the feedback that their planning commission got was that if they did it from the edge of the lots, that wouldn't allow very many places for these uses. But when they narrowed it up, edge of the building. So there's something, I think, you know, something we need to look at, whether it's, you know, edge of the lot, edge of the building. Some of the townships are choosing not to limit the number in their townships. In fact, some of the townships had indicated that they would approve more for their areas than what the county's number was. Some of the cities, I think remember it's Shakopee or Savage said their ordinance was not gonna limit the number. They were gonna just let it, whatever the market dictates. And just, I think they expected it's gonna be a lot like liquor stores where the market's gonna dictate, you know, what it can hold.
I think there's a, you get into the agriculture, if you're cultivating, that's one thing, the cultivation happens in generally in a building that's got constant light in it. And the temperature, humidity control, there is a lot of, like you're saying, there is a lot of HVAC to try to limit there is a powerful odor that comes from even the cultivation that gets out. And that's, so you need to limit, we need to be looking at, even with the cultivation, nobody does this stuff in an open field. So it's all indoors.
Not Minnesota.
Yeah,
Growing
it's all,
season's not long
it's
enough.
all indoors. But that's, when we do that, the problem becomes in dividing in essentially, you grow the stuff, but then there's the processing and packaging and extraction and all of the other things which become the industrial portion of it. But nobody does a facility like this without doing some of those other processes. And so you need to really get into the thing and define what they're doing and have an answer for that. You know, is it really an agricultural? But for the most part, almost all of those facilities that are doing that, because they're harvesting it, they're packaging, they're processing. As soon as they go into that, they're not cultivating anymore. They're processing. It's an industrial thing. So we really have to kind of look at that, and that also gives us a little bit of an opportunity to limit that. I think we should really study that portion of it. And like you mentioned earlier in the nuisance ordinance, any one of these facilities is a real problem with odor. And we do need to upgrade. I would suggest both an ordinance for cannabis in, processing, et cetera, and the nuisance ordinance. Because we also have in this law that passed, it allows anybody to grow up to 8 plants in their yard, but they have to have it secure to a point of almost bulletproof around it, the same fencing, the same lighting, security, and all of that to keep everybody out. But Credit River is, we've got all these small places, and everybody's looking as a cottage industry to have a business. And so I think we could easily see, once this thing actually opens up, a lot of people wanting to do this in their backyard or in their house or in their, so we really need to figure out how we're going to make sure that it doesn't turn into a mess.
A couple of preliminary thoughts on that, council member. The guidelines from the state are consistent with the way that we've looked at it as well. And the indoor cultivation, that really needs to be in an industrial zone. So that's one limitation there. And second, something that's in our draft ordinance that I neglected to mention earlier on is absolutely excluding this from home occupation type businesses.
Yeah.
I'd also like to make sure that we call out interim uses rather than conditionals. I think that's something, again, like you said, we do need to look through some of our current uses and adjust those where interim would be more appropriate, but
One interim,
once you
expire.
you can have, it's a beginning and end,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
and the conditional runs the property forever, no matter what transfer of ownership. So you would like to see an opportunity if an ownership changes to reset on something
I
like
think
that.
you want to be able to reevaluate the person that's trying to operate it. Depending on.
So next steps.
Mayor and council, the next steps will be for staff to get our draft ordinance to the planning commission and notice a hearing. I believe we're aiming for the planning commission meeting in February. Hopefully get that polished off and to you for passage at the end of February.
Okay.
City Attorney,
Bill?
so I read Joseph Say's memo,
Sathi, yeah.
and they had a bunch of questions. We're not going through those questions tonight and answering them, or?
If there's anything called out in those questions that spurred a discussion that you all feel is important to direct us to the planning commission as opposed to us using with the planning commission to bring back to you for big ticket policy kind of direction. That's really what it's intended for. I have my own personal style is to distill that down to the things we've discussed tonight, but we can certainly discuss anything that you feel is important.
No, I just answered them all. So
Okay.
you don't want them though. That's fine.
I would welcome an email if you would
Okay, I'll
like.
just forward you mine. They're just little notes.
Mayor Council, as city staff will pivot to under Stickler to kind of work up this chart as you see on the screen. Do you feel, Claire, that you have enough information to present something to the planning commission from a draft concept form to start a conversation that we can publish? And, or do you think you need any more particular information to take away from here? For example.
No, I appreciate the question. Thank you. No, I mean, my notes say that for, I mean, it sounds like almost everything, or maybe everything, IUP for initial discussion for now, because we can't prohibit, I mean, focusing obviously C&I on those heavier, more industrial type manufacturing uses as well as retailer. And then cultivation RR for now, with a limit on acreage size, minimum acreage size, maybe some other parameters like setbacks and things.
Yeah, well, when you say IUP for everything, you're saying uses in CI,
Mhm.
UERC?
Those could have,
Is that what, I mean,
Yeah,
so, I mean, it wouldn't be in the R1, 2, 3 or
Correct.
RR for most of those uses.
this would be.
They would more
something-
land in the C and I
Yes,
as an IUP.
yes, correct, because
Mhm.
we have to allow them somewhere.
Right.
But we can allow them with an IUP or a CUP.
Yep.
So yes, those more retail focus / industrial manufacturing focus would be C&I, and then the cultivation RR.
Mhm.
With a minimum lot size and maybe some other.
Because we don't actually have an ag designation in our ordinance.
Correct, so you have ag uses.
We do, but we don't have
we
an
don't have a
ag
district.
designation district.
Correct,
So maybe that's the
First place to start.
other piece of it.
Yeah.
Then
We have to clean up some of that other stuff to make sure
to think
that
about
that it actually works with whatever.
But, I mean, with short of, not running and reacting to it and doing something, but considering how that affects that change. Does it affect that change? You would have to study that a little bit before we did, JB, because I don't think I'm not clear on that use and how that affects where that use would best be landing.
and if I may, I do think that with the specific definitions of all of these uses that coincide from the state level. Yes, a lot of them lean towards ag, but we can define them specifically listed here. You know, this will be not just this will be in your zoning ordinance, alongside of all of the existing uses, so. I think maybe on a staff level, if a permit is coming in, we are able to look at this definition, and also all of the requirements is we have to see state licensing, all of that before. I mean, there are some cities that I've been working with that have approved IUPs and CUPs for cultivation with a condition of, well, when your license comes through and we see proof
Right.
of that. So I guess somebody could come in tomorrow and submit something, but again, your existing use chart doesn't have these. So we would, as he was alluding to, have to classify it somewhere because it is after January 1st. We do have to allow it in
Yeah.
some, so, yeah.
So real quick, council, and if you've ran through the packet and see the highlighted green questions and things, was there anything else that you wanted to add regarding any of those at this point? Or I know you talked about doing an email bill follow-up.
I'll
on
just
some
send
of
them my
those.
comments. They were all basically do the most you can do to keep this stuff out of City Credit River. Whatever you can do, whatever we can do. That's
second
basically how I
that.
answered
Yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, I do have a couple of things. I think water was mentioned, water usage was mentioned. then it's something that we actually have to kind of look at because the Elko New Market, Niagara Water Plant has, that just, if anybody's followed that, is drawing a lot of water out of the ground, which actually migrates this way. If we were to put in another facility, and if somebody's gonna do these, they're doing a fairly large situation. And it could be drawing a lot of water. We should be also looking at making sure that we have some sort of a limitation on that. And I don't know how we're gonna go about doing that.
Especially given that it would be private well.
Yeah,
We don't regulate private wells.
right. So is that something we have to work with the county on? Because there is a water resource. I mean, you can see how that all worked out with Niagara, but
But Niagara is connected to a municipal system, which
Yeah.
is different, which is why they were able to regulate some of that, yeah. Okay. Staff, do you think you have enough information to move forward with I know it's short, and then we'll, if anybody has any further comments, we'll forward those on through Administrator Johnson.
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, big topic.
Yeah.
All right, move on to 7.3. Eric, I think we can cancel 7.3. I don't think there's any further discussion
Yeah, I
to the
didn't
administrator topic.
I didn't know if you were adding specifics, so no, that's.
Okay, then we'll move to 7.4, consider appointment position of finance director, Administrator Johnson. Try it again. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In November, the city council kicked off a process to seek, potentially place a new finance director. Council members Markert and Council member Zanto spent some time talking about the duties and potential pay scales and how we would rank them, so to speak. And so we published advertising for the positions. As to be expected, that's a tough hire in the metro area. I think it's a dwindling skill set. Whether that be through retirements or attrition, what have you. In the public realm, I can only speak to. So we didn't get a lot of applications, only 3 at this point. So myself and the council members interviewed. The one applicant we wanted to carry forward was Mr. Lucas Chase. I think our interview was positive. I certainly won't speak to for the council members and certainly add color here. He's a CPA. He worked with a number of municipalities to develop, present their annual audits. Clearly has a demonstrated understanding of GASB and financial reporting. He's been with Clifton Larson 13 years, and in that role, advancing through the company. We did have a second round of interview. I asked the mayor and Councilmember Satterback. We did invite Leroy, but he couldn't make the meeting on a different day. So we included Don Majeski, our finance person, and our city clerk to participate in that and have more of a, I don't know if it would call it a second interview, but I think just try to get to know and understand how that person is. And so every council member has an opportunity to meet and consider it. Talking to 3 of the communities that he has worked with in audits every year, and spoke highly of him. I think there'll be one constant message. He gave presentations, easy to work with, affable person. Thought 2 of those persons from other cities were finance directors and thought he could do that job just fine. I think there's always a learn up curve to be on the operational side versus the auditing side. But it seems to me he could handle that just fine. As with anything else. So I think there's a consensus informally that to offer him a position, and I think at this point, the recommendation is to offer him a position to the city of finance director at a target rate of 122,000. He's willing to start sooner than later. He's flexible, assuming you folks are too. Potentially middle of January. Sooner we can get him on board or any finance director on board, we can transition out Abdo as we responsibly can. Get that person learned up, start working on your CSTSs, and all the other financial policies you want to adopt. And sooner or later in June or July, you'll start off on your budget again. So time is of the essence, as we all know. So that's where we stand. I would certainly defer to you folks as to anything else you want to add, obviously, so.
Thank you, Eric. Council members, any comments, questions?
I met with him and I think he really speaks well. I think he understands what he's doing quite well and I'm all for him.
Bill,
I
anything
don't have a lot to
additional?
add. He's competent. He's easy to speak with. That's what I had written down too. He's got a good grasp of accounting, auditing and all that stuff. And I like the fact that the three people that we called for references all thought that he could do the job. The only drawback is he's never been a finance director for a city, but he's worked with finance directors of cities. So,
He's checked their work.
yeah.
Yeah, he's audited, he's been their auditor.
Yeah.
Many for
Mhm.
12 years.
13.
Right.
Yeah.
He does
I
a
think
job
so.
hop.
Yeah.
You might wonder why is he leaving after 13 years? And I think he had mentioned that he still works downtown. They have a downtown office and I think he lives south of us, right?
Farmington.
Farmington.
Yeah.
So, it'll be nice that he's got a much shorter commute.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that was the reason really why he was looking for something different, not because he was being let go or he called himself an alumni of CLA. After a while, you just do so much audit work that you they beat you up for a number of years. I mean, to stay for 13 years as an auditor is a long time.
Yeah.
So I was very comfortable, with him.
Mhm.
And he's in the range of what Abe had produced a while back in terms of salary. So.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, and I
Any
thought from an
additional-
organizational perspective, he'd fit in well. This is Credit River and that didn't
Didn't scare him away.
Wasn't any issue at all, and I think he would fit well with staff that's here as well.
Yeah.
Did he say this was an upgrade of what he grew up, the city he
I
grew
think
up
so.
in?
Yeah,
They might have had a barn or something for
so
their.
Yeah.
I think he's excited about the possibility of working for the city.
Yeah.
I don't think it's I'm settling for that.
No, I don't think so either. And given some of the comments even today, as Eric made the conditional offer regarding the wage and whatnot, I believe he's got another offer that's actually higher than this, but he's willing to do this at that price. So that shows that he is more about the excitement for the job and the opportunity rather than just to fit into another big organization where he would be just following somebody's policies from the past. Yeah.
I did read his resume and through the packet and seemed to be really qualified for the job, so
He said he'd answer the phone for anybody.
it's good.
He hasn't hung up on me yet.
But he'll pick up the calls.
Right.
10 o'clock in the morning from
Okay.
citizens, so.
With that, is somebody ready to make a motion to approve
make
this
that
hire?
motion.
Thank you, Jay.
I'll second.
I'll take Bill's second on that. I've got a motion by Sutterbach, a second by Marker to approve the appointment of the position of finance director to Mr. Lucas Chase at the wage of $122,000 a year, starting as soon as everybody's ready. I got a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 7.5.
Sorry, apologize. I have one other item related to that.
Oh. Yeah.
So we'll talk with Lucas tomorrow and finalize, in your packet, we do a standard offer letter, so we'll follow those protocols and go from there.
By the way, this is not a contract position similar to
No.
the city administrator.
No, but
Yep.
he would be an employee.
Yeah.
And it's an exempt position. Yes, he was in this building, but I don't think I really showed him in the office and we had the nickel tour, as it were. But I think we need some, to be fair, we need some new office equipment. We're gonna have to shuffle some things around. They're gonna need a new computer. There's gonna need an ergonomics and get him comfortable with it. I don't know what those all things are going to cost. Certainly a new computer and monitors. You know, to get it up to speed with more IT into the SharePoint, working with Banyan Data System, Gil, things I don't.
Are you
So
picking up another license also?
it might.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, so I'm asking if mayor and council is, why $10,000 for all these things? I don't. I think it's gonna be certainly less, but until we get the computer in our hand, the screens, get networked, Banyan systems connected, get the poor guy a decent chair and a decent work surface, maybe we can move some things around. I think that's what we gotta do.
Did you also include making changes over here?
Yeah, as part of that, to
Mhm.
kind of, we'll have to move Donna and shift some things and maybe we can find some other panels cheap, you know, whatever that means, but I think we've kind of got to get that ball rolling sooner than later and take any input you might have.
Could we make it, just make a motion at this point for a not to exceed 10,000?
That's what the ask is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we need to do more, we can certainly look at it again.
Yeah, though, to be fair, I can't imagine it's, but we gotta start. I don't know.
Right.
What?
Give a little leeway to get the ball rolling.
Well, if my memory serves me right, we had about $4,000 for computer upgrades this year.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
And would we need a Banyan license? It seems like we would have them for Abdo and Donna.
Well, if Abdo, we have them for Donna, and I'm just shooting from the hip here.
Okay.
Right now, all of our on-site Banyan system is captured on one single laptop. And so in order for it to gotta disconnect those physically, but still home run somewhere, so I think that's part of it. Versus just the license.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have
And
to,
maybe you want him to have a phone. Right now, I punched a hole in the wall and I ran a phone line through the wall and out of my office, so maybe you want him to have a separate phone or something. I mean, so these are some things we'll have to sort out. Anyway, we had two phone lines, we added a remote line from Amy's desk, so. Well, similar vein, we didn't want Donna Majeski giving out her home phone number when people would call for questions, so
Mm-hmm.
all this.
we might have to look for a different desk on Facebook again. For $100.
Where do we get that with this Apple Valley? You and I ran over the
Bloomington.
Bloomington. Oh yeah, West Bloomington.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking top of the line stuff here.
No,
Class A office furniture, it's just what makes some sense versus.
Yep.
Stuff.
Okay. So is anybody ready to make a motion to approve not to exceed 10,000 and thank you, Jay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Leroy. Motion is second to approve not to exceed $10,000 in total and related investments related to standing up the finance director position. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, Eric, sorry, now we'll move on to 7.5, consider discussion of lobbying for state of Minnesota for state bonding funds.
Okay, so this is always an interesting topic and it's a challenging topic about how cities secure dollars from the state of Minnesota. How do cities do it or why do they do it? I can't answer those questions. Sort of what was the history of that? But we know we live in a very political world and not from a left or right side, but just politics. And in order to get dollars from the state of Minnesota through their bond funds, you need to have that expertise or engage the hiring of the expertise to know how to access those dollars, assuming you want to. And I'm not saying you're assuming you want to. In the event you do, whether it be for sewer or water or any kind of other infrastructure, the Country Court extension or the Stone Bridge extension, or those ideas or concepts, whether those are on-site sewer lines, water lines, street reconstructions. Have to have somebody that can shepherd you through that. And that's done by lobbying here in the state of Minnesota. Our lobbyists generally are former legislators. They know the process, they know who to talk to, they know which committee to communicate with, how to write the bill, how to matriculate the bill through the halls, if you will. And I think I had a duty to tell you folks, if you do want to look for some of these dollars. For the 2025 legislative cycle is probably pretty tight. There is always a bond ask request that comes out from the governor's office. Early in, I think in July, August, I could be wrong, but you're well beyond that to be part of the governor's proposal. And this is not about just walls, plenty. This is just part of their process through their Office of Management and Budget. So if you thought you want to look for state grant, state bond dollars. I'm saying you have to go and hire a lobbyist, but you probably. So I called up a lobbyist that I worked with in my former position at Lockridge Brindle. Ann Lancheski is the person in your packet. I have no preference to her or any other firm, but I worked with her on a couple of projects in Oak Park Heights. We secured $3.5 million from an investment of $200,000 in services over a period of years for utility extensions to the Allen S. King plant and some transportation projects.
How much was the total projects in
Yeah.
this? So 3.5 million we got in state, you got in state
Yeah.
grants, but how big was the project?
Well,
100 million? Like? how mu-
Sure. Now it can depend on every project. The state will always ask the local unit of government from the bonding perspective to try to contribute half.
Okay.
So, but the interesting thing about that is you always ask for that to also be amended. But as you look to your legislators to be advocates for you, you have other legislators who might say to that legislator, we're not even contributing half. So it becomes that push and pull.
But the general rule of thumb is
They want you to contribute something.
something. Okay.
So there's always that. So I thought you should at least be aware of this possibility and thinking about what those costs are. If you think you're gonna have to make some investments into the few $1 million for sewer and water at some point in the next 5 years or something. And I think that's even what we might have offered, at least from the MPCA finding for the sanitary sewer extension or options there for Stonebridge. They want you to turn over every rock to find funding, whether it's successful or not. So I don't know much more I can add about that, but to think about, this is what this stuff includes. You would have to spend 40 or some odd $1,000 a year for a period of years to be successful. That lobby should have a relationship with your legislators, your state, the House and the Senate. So that helped without talking, but that's kind of where this thing is. Scale is a group that lobbies. Many cities lobby. How did that city get those dollars? Well, guess what? They probably lobbied. For good or for bad. And it's across the state, it's across the political spectrum, just is.
So do you know how Lockridge balances are my priority versus the other city? They're also representing their priority and
Sure. I think it's like my experiences in working with just these two people and I've not worked with the other person, Alex, myself, but I've worked with Ann over the years and they have clients in each firm and there's a litany of clients that go with it. Some firms specialize only with like scale, or they specialize only with the league, or they specialize with any other kind of interest group. And they kind of sort themselves out that way. I've not known them to work one against the other, because that's not that kind of game. It's always looking to find the pot to be bigger, for good or for bad. It's just what it is. If Credit River is asking for dollars, and that's not good for Lakeville concept, would they be working for Lakeville, lobbying something opposing?
If you only have $1 million and we want 1 million and they want 1 million,
Well, then, that I can't help you with, right,
Right.
as they say, but,
'Cause they
if
are
not
by
at the
far-
table, you won't get nothing.
yeah,
Mhm.
they are.
So, or, I mean, that's what your legislators are for, and then your legislators here on the Senate side is
Duckworth.
Duckworth and
Cosmic.
And so this person should have their ear in a positive way,
Mhm.
bipartisan, because that usually takes a supermajority vote to get done, so. Anyway, this is where you stand, and I worked with Ann, again, trust me, there's 10 lobbying firms that do a really good job. I just
Mhm.
worked with them. And I've known Ann for a few years, and she was a House Tax Committee Chair. She was on the City Council of Bloomington. I've known her to be pretty darn good representative of the city she works for. Responsive, will meet with you on a regular basis if you so desire, will help you set up your legislative agenda. It's not Eric's agenda, it's not the mayor's agenda, it's your agenda
Mhm.
to say, this is what we want you to work. And pretty good batting average, if I'm not mistaken. So I think I had a duty to bring it up to you. And
Yeah.
Here, I don't know if Claire, you might have worked with these types of people, clearly. Or Mary, or you work with the representative scale and lobbying and.
Yep. Absolutely, and you're right, Eric. I mean, that's the way, if you want anything to get done through legislature, that's the only way you can get it done. There's no way that any of us can be down at the Capitol enough to build these relationships and carry these things forward, let alone write the bill, write the requests. With just the two things, whether we think about, a possible ask on Stonebridge and again, we've got the Country Court project coming up. Just those things could pay off pretty quickly on a, they're both good stories to tell at the legislature.
Well, I think the stone bridges. And also possibly expanding that to some of the other CSTSs.
Depending on whatever solution we decide to ask for.
That could actually
100%.
be a long-term solution for them. The best
The
that we have done.
naturally occurring workforce housing in Country Court is something that's, an easy story to tell. And an easy one to, ask for money for. They definitely, that it has bipartisan support without a problem. But if we don't start the process, because it doesn't necessarily happen immediately the first year you ask either.
No,
So
you're looking for 3-4 years out.
Leroy, you were,
Well, when we were a township, we had lobbyists like this that our association dues went to.
Through the association.
Yeah.
through
Yes.
Matt, and we still
We
do
still
with
do
the
that.
league.
Yeah.
The League of Minnesota has, but that they lobby for the general platform that the league puts together,
Mhm.
right? Or the general platform that Matt put together, not for specific
Right.
city asks in these cases, right? And much like we also contribute with Scale, as they have a lobbyist group, Pull House, that works for the platform that the county groups come together with, and Scott County has their own an on-staff lobbyist. Prior Lake employs a lobbyist, Savage employs lobbyist. And
Yeah.
that's how they work through on their process and on obtaining these things.
I would also like to point out that a little less than a year ago, we interviewed several engineering firms in the RFP, the past RFP that we had for that. And I think as it was, the council opted to settle with one of the few firms that wasn't providing lobbying arm for projects and things like that as well. So I thought it was really important that we were doing that and looking for funds outside of Credit River. Then I still do, because Credit River has an outflow of tax money, whether it be income tax or property taxes, things like that. I think that we're a net giver in Credit River for the rest of the state. And I think we should look to see if we can get some of it to be spent here.
Mhm. Babe.
Philosophically, I hate it. It drives me nuts. So we're spending all this money to go and get money, and it's a racket. I hate it. With that said, it seems odd to me that we would pay Scale, we would pay League of Minnesota Cities, and we would pay them to go lobby for us. Not saying that that's all they do. I'm not saying that at all. So, but I think it would be very wise of us, rather than just to pick one sight unseen, to do some kind of RFP, to have some conversations.
Sure.
As I was looking through LGN, I saw quite a few members in there that did not meet our values at all. And I'm guessing every firm is gonna have something of that nature, but I think it would be wise for us to pick a partner that would be in line. Maybe it's them, maybe it's not, to have those discussions. And then I think also it seems odd to me, in everything I've ever done, you've got some kind of ROI. It kind of seems like we're just gonna throw you money and hope and pray.
Yeah.
So how do we have some kind of dialogue around our investment to make sure that it's going to
I'm
be done?
not saying that we should do it, just jump on this either. I'm thinking that we should be thinking about it. I'm also thinking that maybe we should spend a smaller amount to have a consultant help us decide or figure out what needs we have. I mean, I can think of a lot of them. We've scratched around with the government center, with different things, doing that, because, we're basically a new city still, without a whole lot of services, without a lot of anything. And, it all takes capital to do that. And there's an unwillingness to spend it, and I don't disagree with that. I think we should be frugal. What I'm just saying is I think we should really consider finding other funding that's outside, that's available to us. That's available to everybody. Why shouldn't we also take a look at that? But I think the smart way to do it would be to figure out what our needs are. And if we have to pay a consultant to do that, to help us with that, kind of go through it and analyze what we have and what our needs are going to be over the next, say, 30 or 40 years. We should look at that. And then maybe at that point, we start finding somebody that matches this. I kind of do agree. I think Scale, Scale works for Scale. And League of Minnesota Cities works for League of Minnesota Cities. I mean, we have an immediate need of doing something with the MPCA. And, with the situation that we have in the sewer down south. So I think this planning should be moving along. We shouldn't just set it on a shelf, because, we got a little breathing room with that, but that few years that we have on that, it's gonna run out really quick. And if we can get somebody to pay $1 million of the $2.5 million that it's gonna take to bring the sewer into those houses, I think that's a good story to tell, and I think we should probably be able to get that. And we could also look at that as, if you're raising that money for a CSTS system, well, at some point when the funding is found, you could probably also associate the fees paid for collecting it back to it. So I that's Peter's waving his eyes back and forth, but I'm just thinking it through. Yeah.
Well, that was a
That
question I
makes sense.
had. Could we charge the CSTS,
That's
the
what-
people that benefit from this?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, that
If it's
could
a
be,
subordinate
that's
service
one.
district.
Yeah, that's one.
Same with the
But-
country court sewer.
Yeah, we'd have to look at a very specific proposal to determine what we could and couldn't spend the money on. the money collected inside the subordinate service district needs to be spent for something inside the
Yeah.
district.
And let's be clear, no, I don't see it. Country Club. So.
So maybe if I could, to Councilmember Zanto's point, yeah, it's a dirty business as they say, right? But to do an RFP on this, that's no problem at all, and just bring a few different firms. I think every firm, or but most firms, they're willing to work for the legislative agenda for a given entity. You know, that, I mean, I understand the ethical questions, some of those things, but at the end of the day, they're not trying to answer those questions. Hey, you want to lobby for, you know, people who wear red hats? Fabulous. You know, we'll do that for you, you know. So I think there's always going to be an element of that of every firm. So how do you start parsing that out? I don't know. But to put an RFP together and to bring in a couple of different firms and see what their rates are, and do they have good references? Do they work with other cities? What's some of their track record? You know, that's no problem. But you just have a timing question. Maybe for this year, that's a little beyond something to get done for this legislative cycle, but there's always more legislative cycles. So maybe this is just the first step.
Yeah, I think frankly, you think it through, not that there's anything likely to get done in the legislative session this year anyways, the way it's going. It might be worthwhile this year to run that RFP program, process and work towards having somebody on board for the next legislative session, which would be traditionally a bonding session anyways. This isn't a traditional bonding year. Maybe something happens because one didn't happen last year, but I'm not gonna.
No, they spent all the money.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not gonna forecast anything that happens up in St. Paul this year, but it definitely might be worthwhile running through the process this year, and gives us some time to pull it together, and then pull together. We have our our sewer study will be done soon. We'll have some more understanding of some dollars to that piece, and have some a little more time to sort out the Stonebridge piece and have an ask for that. So it makes more sense to be ready for something like this in next session.
So if I could suggest, rather than working on an RFP process to hire somebody to do it, why don't we look at a consultant that can come in and help him educate us, as well as help us sort out what our needs are, so that we know what to ask for. I mean, if we're gonna, I don't see us hiring somebody to go get stuff if we don't know what we want them to get us. And I think somebody that can come in and identify what's available, or what might be available, and what our needs actually are. Financially, everything else, I think obviously that works when our finance director comes in and all of that too. So it would I think we should probably start there. And then we could go into an RFP maybe, later in the year. So that, like I said, we are ready for the next stuff, and then we can make an educated decision at that point. We don't have to spend 40,000, maybe we can spend a few thousand, have somebody come in and really kind of look at it and analyze our needs.
As you look to the studies Shane is completing, and maybe the other ones that I know will be on the agenda, maybe next time.
Well, some of those things are gonna answer some of the
Right.
questions. So,
But ultimately you'll come with a list of projects, whatever those are, project A, B, and C. You need to do project A, B, and C, whatever those are, A, B, and C, we gotta do. At that point, you're gonna start throwing your sources and uses, your source money into those columns, and what can you allocate to, for lack of a better word, others? Those who are benefiting, or those at the state who have some obligation, or you can secure dollars from a bond sense or a grant or something. But it's a process, it's a continuum. But maybe as Shane works through those reports, he can tell you with some more definitive position what those numbers are. And then what can you seek in 2026 for those? But Shane, speaking, I know he's online. We can't wait to talk, I suspect, but I think that'll be telling. And then maybe even the study, the 4 for 40 and some of those other things that are gonna come back very soon, so. The last piece I guess I would offer is, what is your legislative agenda? You should adopt a formal legislative agenda before you kind of lurch off into that at the end of the day and say, okay, Lockridge, Brindle, or Clarity, or, you know, whatever,
I think that was my point.
you know. So here's what we want you to work on, X, Y, and Z. And go forth and tell us when to show up at the
Capital.
tax committee chair.
Don't we have to have a detailed project plan though with all the specifications and aren't we, this is
You
way
don't need to have a full design plan. You
Just have the
need to have a
dollar
good
amount.
to get
summary-
money? You
good
don't.
Summary, dollar amount, and maybe a concept that's reasonably big.
Okay. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of questions. Maybe I'll just send them to you, but there's a report too that I downloaded, the Minnesota 2023 lobbyist report. Have you seen that before? It shows every single lobby firm and what cities have paid these lobbyists. We only have 5,500 people in our city. And so for a $40,000 annual fee, the cost per capita for us is incredibly high. You got Chanhassen and Chaska get the same $40,000 rate. Congratulations to you guys at Oak Park Heights. You were only charged $25,000.
We were successful in 1 year.
Yeah.
We had a good project. but,
Right. But and it's probably flat rated because I saw a lot of $40,000. I'd like to see their success stories too. I mean, how much, what's like Abe said, return on investment, and what's the likelihood we're going to get anything given our affluent community? I mean, our average home prices here are much higher than they are in some of these other cities.
True. However.
Or doesn't that matter?
It matters. I think you make good points. Challenges, unfortunately, are, the individual projects become very localized. For example, the workforce housing, those sewer lines up there, and how are those people impacted? And aren't they state taxpayers too? You know, the Stonebridge and those folks. Well, it's a nitrate problem. Well, that's a pollution issue. So you bench it from that perspective. And who is that responsibility to fix those things? You know, so it becomes a little messy.
Yeah.
And return on investment, you don't know until you basically cease the process. I will tell you, a good lobbying firm should tell you on the front end, this is a waste of your time.
Right.
If they're not telling you that.
Did they tell you that?
Yeah, they will.
Did they tell you that
Yes.
though when they gave us
The
this?
ones that we were Lockridge, and ones that are worth their salt, they should be telling you this is unlikely to succeed.
Okay.
If they're telling you something just to. Cause they can't contract with you on a contingent basis. That's one thing they cannot.
That was a question I had. So they won't do that.
So there's no contingency. Well, we'll pay you if we're successful.
Can't do that. And it's an annual fee. It can't be monthly. Okay.
But- And this is just one, and from what I heard.
There's a quote,
councils,
yeah.
They get an RFP out.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna be pretty.
They, Abe, you had mentioned something. I didn't see any, what I found with Lockridge is that 94% of their campaign donations last year in 2024 went to Democrats. I don't know if that,
Well, who was in
Bert-
power?
right.
So it's simple.
Yeah, right. But I don't know if that helps us or hurts us.
Well,
We voted 64, we vote 60 to 65% Republican in this city. So is that going to hurt us?
but keep in mind that you're at the bonding level, they need a super majority. And it's the House and the Senate goes back and forth, and they've been doing this back and forth for 100 years.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not against this. It's just I don't want to throw money at a wish or a, you know,
I think the idea would be to spend a smaller amount first and figure out. Let's get some
Yeah.
questions answered.
and charge the people that are going to be benefiting from using these
I
people.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this, I want to bring this, I think I had a duty to bring this to
Yep,
you,
that's
and
good.
say, hey,
Absolutely.
as you look to this legislative session, which is coming. Watch the bated breath and see what happens. So I actually wrote an RFP, I think I can dig it up, and it'll Park. We had 2 applicants, the recipients, and we picked council there, picked Lockbridge Brindle. They've been great.
I think it'd be worthwhile looking at an RFP and
Sure.
see if we can take that forward with something, and
You got time.
we got time. Okay,
Is anyone interested in that report that I downloaded? Because I can send it to Eric and Eric can send it to
That'd be great.
everybody.
it'd be worthwhile.
In the lobbyists, the rules for lobbying. So if you go to the lobbyist state website, whatever it is, you try to click their rules. You don't get in because they're in the finally updating all. So they're in the process of updating their ethical, legal,
Well, and that's a whole nother, who is a lobbyist definition.
Who is a
Still
lobbyist?
hasn't been figured out after the last session either, because they changed those rules, quite frankly. Most of us are probably need to be registered as lobbyists, and those things get sorted out. All right, let's move to 7.6. Consider quote for security camera at City Hall. Administrator Johnson.
sorry, Mayor and Council, I just didn't remember exactly where this conversation came from, if that was in a work session or if it was somebody. So I think that's how I wrote it, but nevertheless, I contacted, the firm you use here for your security, WH Security. They've been fine to work with, over the years, as far as I can tell. In order to install 1 camera in the parking lot and pull a second wire potentially for example, on the west side. You would be recording expandable up to 4 cameras. I guess it would be a rotating overlying imaging, so basically $1,770.
Is there a monthly recurring fee then no? And we'd be doing this for safety of our employees
Mhm.
primarily, because there's nothing to steal in here, right? I mean,
No, it's nothing worth it, but yet it has been broken into.
Yeah.
What was it? When was it? Just, the other night, the alarm went off again.
did it
Yep. Because the door,
blew open or
something,
Yeah.
yeah, it's 10 o'clock at night or something like that. My phone starts ringing, so,
no, I think we need it.
I would- well, yeah, I know, right? A couple
Right.
different times, there's things that happen in the parking lot.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree. I would like us to add a second camera immediately to it. I think 1 camera we cover the parking lot, but another one coming back down this side of the city hall as well, because of the entrance here. And the entrance back there. You know, I think it would be just quick and easy, just, for they're already proposing running the wire for it, so it's just adding the hardware, 1 more camera. There's already a 4-channel recorder, so it doesn't raise the price much.
So
Leave it.
cameras, what, about $230?
If we go ahead with this and get it installed, don't let them up in the attic. Last time the guy fell through.
They have to be up there.
He can-
No, the
he can-
last,
He can run the wire along the top of the wall or ceiling or something.
the guys who did the Cat 5 over to the back and over there were fine up there.
Yeah. You
He
didn't
just ran into the hornet's nest up
You didn't have
there.
to fix the ceiling over
And
there. I did.
So,
And
so,
the bales of hay and
so Eric, I have a question.
Yeah,
all
Does
good.
it record only video or is there audio too? Because there's conversations that occur after our meetings
Yeah.
and some
Oh,
people
boy.
may not want to be recorded.
I don't think so. I have not heard of that, but we could ask and.
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to actually make a proposal for a different thing. I think much cheaper, less maintenance. Why not just do some Ring doorbells? You just put 2 Ring doorbells on here. You can see who's at the door even when you're not here. Staff can then be alerted when someone's at the door versus knocking on the door. It's Wi-Fi, you don't have that installation. Yes, you pay a monthly fee for it,
Yeah.
but you're talking like $10 a month for it. I think it'd be a lot more economical and you wouldn't have any kind of maintenance on something in your server rack that no one really knows how to work anyways here, except
So
for
that would
Chris.
allow- that would allow
Uh,
somebody to actually see who's outside before they unlock the door.
Mhm.
You know, if they were here by themselves.
Yep.
Some things like that, that might be.
So you
actually
could throw one on
beneficial.
there, you can throw one on there, it's super easy to
How
install.
would that be for covering the parking lot though? I think, because this was to cover the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, look at any Ring doorbell, you're probably not, you're not
You're
gonna
not gonna
get
trigger
great.
the motion
You can have
unless
it
somebody
set-
came up close to the,
You can have it set to a pretty decent range. You're not gonna receive probably super great, but for a $230 camera, you're not gonna get that great of a camera anyways. So what are we trying to do? Are we trying to stop people from gathering in our parking lot? Or are we just trying to see if someone's gonna break into the building or do something they shouldn't in the building? In my mind,
I think what we're trying to do, Abe, is so when these guys are working in here, the door's locked, they bang up, they're able to see.
Absolutely.
Who's out there.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you can put Ring right on your phone. Anyone
Yeah.
that's on staff could have it on their phone. They could see
Okay.
who's there. They could even talk when they're not here to them. I mean, and you start to have the intercom
Sure.
capabilities.
so does the Ring require power to it?
No, you can do wireless and battery.
So if you do battery, then how often are we changing batteries? I don't, I had.
It's
Mine's
rechargeable.
connected
You can
to my doorbell power.
You can have
Right.
at home.
rechargeable, or you can just pop it. It just alerts when it's getting low. And since we have staff on, it's not like it's an unmanned warehouse that you're gonna
Right.
have to make a special trip. I mean, it's pretty easy to pop it off and. Now you do have the capability, you have the opportunity for it to walk away a little bit easier than a fixed camera. But I don't know who really wants to have a Ring doorbell that's recording you taking it anyways. So that's just, I think it'd be a better use of our dollars to do something like that instead.
Okay, council,
Heck, maybe Eric look into the Ring doorbell.
who's gonna do the install?
We can get any electrician to come out here and do that if no one else wants to do it.
I just bought one for my mom.
So you're experienced.
Literally 2 screws into the wall and put a
Yeah.
bracket on.
So to be fair, I just at Christmas, right? And
You broke the screw off.
yeah, well, no, so I was wise enough to just kind of give it to her and then leave. So no, it's a box and it's battery. But I said, look, so we'll get it installed and see how it turns out, but I think it should be fine. I mean, I don't know, give it a shot. It's a battery one, and so my brother-in-law's gonna hook it up and. see
We
how
should
it
make
all
sure,
turns out.
So it's still
we
in the
should-
box.
we should
Well,
make sure
they
Wi-Fi
supposed to get
works
it
out there
done.
though.
The Wi-Fi will have to work and
That's the thing I'd be worried about, cause I know the Wi-Fi doesn't reach outside the building.
it was
So we
like
should,
$100 for that one unit.
we can.
Yeah, if not,
That's a
then
phone
you-
out the
You
door
can
there
buy
and
a
see.
vendor or whatever for the booster for the Wi-Fi. Or access.
I mean, we could
You put
ask
it-
more IT to
We can,
give some input too,
yeah,
or whoever we wanted to.
The unit itself was like $100. I
yeah.
just wanted to buy one just to see if it works. If it
Well,
doesn't work,
hang
well,
on,
then what the
let-
hell?
You could always return it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can even get Wi-Fi reception out the door before we buy one.
And it is a standard is $99 per year,
Yeah,
up to 110,
All right.
180 days.
let's table that one for now.
All right.
More discussion. All right. Let's move on to 7.7 fee ordinance. Amy, I know you put this one in there, but Eric, do you want to handle this
I-
one because of the change in?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. And Amy, certainly interrupt me if I get it
Yeah.
wrong, so. So the Savory Years City considers adopted a fee schedule. One of the changes that staff was discussing and was a potential increase in the park dedication fee from 500 or 1,500 to 1,500 and 2,500 for residential, commercial. So in order to do that, you do have to adopt changes to your fee schedule. Looking more at that, we do need to do that by public hearing.
Mhm.
And so we did not hold that public hearing, so what we would ask is if the council is comfortable, number one, with those potential changes in park dedication fees, but also then to hold that public hearing on January 21st here at the city council. And I don't know if there's any other fees you wanted to take a look at prior, if you're gonna crack that nut open, maybe take a look at some other things and we'll put that on that agenda too, so.
Yeah, so it's been quite some time for quite a few of our fees that have never been touched in terms of rate changes. And because inflation has kicked up, you know, the last 5 years been about 20%. I think we do need to look at what we're charging and reasonably increase those. And I'd be happy to take a stab at doing that. I've already downloaded things into Excel spreadsheet that I can screw around with, and I can also compare it to like Prior Lake to make sure that we're in the ballpark. And I'd be happy to do that, but whether I can get that done before the planning commission,
yeah.
but we could also talk
to
about this in
notice it.
February because we still aren't going to have the CSTS rates, which is part of the fee schedule. We could update the other ones in February. And just stick with this, just stick what you mentioned for this planning commission meeting.
Folks are comfortable with that on the 21st to
So
Tuesday.
Yep.
Whatever that
Yeah.
is, just do it
21st.
as is presented with the park dedication fee and the rest could come back in a later date.
I think that would be a reasonable way
Yeah.
to tackle this. Let's still run the public hearing.
Yep.
And get this at least approved for this year. And then as we, want to adjust from there. The only one I'm questioning the park dedication, why is the commercial land $1,000 less than residential?
So the
I mean, I would understand that the theory of it is that the
Right.
commercial industrial is probably not going to use a park.
Right.
But
and-
it's
and
revenue
based on-
generating.
But it is based on gross acreage of land versus the unit.
Oh, yeah, okay. So it's probably gonna be more acreage anyway, so they'll pay a higher fee anyways. Okay, I'm good with that. Yep.
But that's okay, we'll do that public hearing on the 21st here and then bring it back to you.
Yeah. Then unless anybody have any
So-
disagreement to that?
No, just to be
Okay.
clear, then we're not, that section of all of that, we're not looking to change the fees from what they're showing here.
Right, yeah, everything, we'll leave it the same as what they're showing here.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, is there for the rest of it, then do we need to also, in our noticing, publish the fees that we're looking to change?
Well, we'll
Or
do
we've
that. I think
done-
we'll do that after we talk about which ones we want to do.
Right.
We'll go through the whole process again.
Yeah.
Right.
But we have
Yeah.
to, but in the notice that goes out for the public hearing, we have to have the proposed fees in.
Yeah.
No,
Ultimately,
Jay, we
we-
would pass this as is, this,
Mm-hmm.
the next time, hold the public hearing, pass this. And then as we research the rest of them and then get, our finance director on board, we can sort out the CSTS fees
Mm-hmm.
and rates and everything and through there. And then we'll do an amendment to this
Okay.
later in the year,
Okay.
do another public hearing and,
Sure.
yeah.
I'm good with that.
I think one of the biggest things on some of this is gonna be looking at, are these fees paying for what their intent is? It's
Well,
not
that's a
just,
great question.
right, because
I don't know how we
that's
figure that out.
big, yeah, well, that's where I think Bill, having the finance person on board a little bit to get that and to try to sort that out is, are these planning ones covering the planning? Are the, the permit issuance of the liquor licenses covering our cost in issuing that? We just issued those, so that should be an easy one to go back and look at. That, because ultimately the goal of those fees are to cover
Cover
the
costs.
expense that.
Not exceed it.
Right, it gets close as reasonably possible as you can, right? So,
It's a fair assumption though, if we have annual wage increases of
Mhm.
5%, I mean, technically for doing something, our fees should go up 5%.
yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that, Bill. I'm just saying we just need to make sure there's some sort of correlation to that point as well, and not just
Do you
willy-nilly
remember how we
pick a-
got the original rates? Or they were Scott County, but how did Scott County come up with their
Mm.
rates?
No, these are all rates that we
Oh.
have had for quite a while.
Well, some of them haven't changed, like 2007. there's some rates that haven't changed in 18 years.
Mhm.
Those were Scott County rates, so weren't they, or were that we mirrored? Didn't
No,
they
we
do all
still
of our
had some of
planning?
them. Most of these ones we've had for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And
we were
that's-
still doing NPDS,
Yeah.
because we were having, Shane look at that stuff. We're doing culvert stuff. So a
Okay.
lot of these things, Bill, we've been doing for quite a while,
Do you
actually.
remember how we came up with the rates we came up with then? I'm sure we didn't do a cost study. I think we just went like this,
go.
and that's what I'm
Well,
proposing to do, this, just
that-
as long as it's
That's
reasonable.
when we had the dartboard in the finance office
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
there.
So as long as it's reasonable, as long as it's
Whoever
reasonable.
was the best at throwing the bullseye on the dart.
Yeah.
No, we kind of compared off.
Yeah.
Other cities.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll do that one and, next meeting. Okay, staff and council member reports. Peter, anything? Eric, Abe, Leroy?
We might have to dust coat the roads if we don't get snow soon. They're complaining about dust, so.
You know what? I drove through Murphy on New Year's Day and I was shocked at how much dust was on my car. I thought, oh, good, it's frozen this time of year. I can cut through the park to get to Lakeville and yeah, not so much. Okay,
That's it.
that's it. Interesting enough, I know we had a big conversation on cannabis, the scale general membership meeting on Friday. We'll touch on cannabis. So that'd be an interesting conversation. What else? We had scale exec last week. Solid waste is gonna be, we talked about solid waste, and solid waste is gonna be a big topic coming up. Especially if the city of Minneapolis makes Hennepin County shut down the trash burner. So that to be determined, more to come. I think we're gonna start hearing some more about that as we go along, but I know most of the cities in Scott County don't regulate that. One thing interesting, by the way, and I think you'll see some more, I recommended County Administrator Vermillion market this a little bit more, but because Scott County's license, how they license recycling, the recycling that goes out of Scott County actually doesn't leave Scott County. It's recycled here by, Anchor Glass, takes all the glass recycling, all the plastics go to buy the yard. So a lot of that stuff is kept right here by local businesses in Scott County. So that in Scott County, you put something in a recycle bin, it's not sitting on a barge floating in an ocean somewhere. Or, it's being recycled here in Scott County. So I said recommended that'd be a good marketing opportunity for the county. So, Jay, anything? Bill?
Vision Committee was going to meet tomorrow, but that's been postponed or rescheduled. Do we have a final? Is it going to be the 22nd? Has everyone
Yes.
gotten?
Well, I've heard from everyone, but
Okay.
I would say for now.
Yep, so we're gonna have it on the 22nd. The surveys are due January 10th, which is in a few days. Amy, would you happen to know how many off the top of your head we've received roughly? 382. So get your surveys in. That's a lower than I expected. I thought there'd be more than that. So tell your friends. We did have an issue where two of the 5 postal areas of Credit River didn't receive their survey for 2 weeks after they went out. I think that's been resolved though. I think everybody in those areas got it now. And it had nothing to do with what we did as a city. It was the Postal Service. So, which I'm not blaming it. They got their own issues, but hopefully everyone has it now. So if you haven't filled out a survey, I ask all the citizens to please fill it out. This is your opportunity. We don't want to hear, well, I didn't know about it. I didn't get a chance to, submit your survey. That's all I got.
Could we send a note out to our email blast to remind?
Yeah. And I did notice that on our website, you have to scroll down to get to see that. Can you do a splash like when you go to creditriver.gov or whatever, and it splashes right in front of your eyes? You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, kind of like your Happy New Year.
Splash right
2025.
now.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That'd
Do
be
the
great.
hero image.
It's great.
yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
Claire, anything additional for us? Okay, Amy? No? Shane, you got anything for us?
Nothing for me.
Perfect.
Can I make the motion to adjourn?
You can make a motion to adjourn, Abe.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
Good check.